and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly.
And I'm Matt Freeman.
And if the secret police are out there listening, gosh, we do love America.
Love it.
Let's write a play about just how much we love it.
That's a capitalism idea.
This week on the show, it is another one of our Patreon-produced episodes. We're really trying to knock these out as quickly as possible and catch up on our backlog, Matt. For those that don't know, folks that pledge to us on the Doof Warrior level or above on Patreon, that is patreon.com/doofmedia, those folks get to select a movie or a short story for us to do a show on. This week, one of our patrons, Reatter, asked us to take a look at the 2006 German film Das Leben der Anderen, aka The Lives of Others. So we are going to be talking about this movie in full. As always, Matt, this will be a full spoilers review. I am very excited about this conversation, Matt, because I think the impetus for this happening is back at the end of the year when we were doing our best films of the decade list. We kind of threw this out there to our listeners that were like, hey, we don't do enough foreign films. We don't talk about foreign films enough, except for Japan. Japan, we're really good.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're full up.
At least Japanese animated films were good.
Good point.
And we kind of challenged our listeners out there to say, hey, bring us some foreign films. Bring us some films outside of the United States. I think calling them foreign films is unfair because it's not foreign to the people that are presenting the films to us. But some outside of the United States of America films to broaden our horizons there. And our patron Reatter took that challenge and said, okay, here you go. I got a film for you. And that's why we're here to talk about the lives of others. So I'm very happy that we get to do that. I haven't seen too many films out of Germany, and I can't wait to talk about this one.
I don't know if I've seen any films out of Germany. So yeah, I mean, this was delightful. This is exactly why I love doing this show. Yeah,
me too. It's always fun to explore something you've never really explored before. So we're going to talk all about this movie, and then we're going to wrap up the episode. I just want to talk to you really quick, Matt, about the newest HBO show. It's a show called Lovecraft Country, the first episode of which premiered this past weekend. And I have some things I wanted to say about it. I overall really enjoyed it. I realized that as I said that, it sounded more ominous than I meant it to be. I really enjoyed it. It was a very fun experience. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I will not spoil it for you or for anyone else that's listening, but a good first episode. I want to talk about it.
Can't wait. Yeah, I want to hear about this.
Cool. But let's just jump into it, Matt, and let's talk about Das Leben der Anderen. I'm going to keep saying that in German, even though my pronunciation is probably shit.
Georg Dreimann. Das ist so ziemlich unser einziger Autor, der nichts Verdächtiges schreibt. Ich würde ihn überwachen lassen.
Matt, tell me what The Lives of Others is about.
In 1984, East Berlin, an agent of the secret police conducting surveillance on a writer and his lover, finds himself becoming increasingly absorbed by their lives.
I love when IMDb does a good job with these.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I saw a much worse description earlier.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It was like.
Do you have that on hand?
No, but what like it focused on like. It was basically just looking for an excuse to talk about the fact that like he was listening to them have sex, and I was like, that's not a big part of this movie at all. It's not. That doesn't matter. Yeah.
No. In fact, he's always kind of. That is not what attracts him to this couple at all. Is
right.
Listening to their lovemaking.
I think he's sort of in love with the woman, but I don't think that's really. I don't think it's in this creepy way that this ad was trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I think you're right, but I think it's also a little bit more complicated than that.
Sure.
So that's a weird way to start the conversation, but let's talk about this movie overall before we kind of dive into it. Matt, what did you think? What were your overall thoughts on The Lives of Others?
I really enjoyed it. I thought, the beginning really hooked me. The progression with sort of, I guess Wiesler is the protagonist. I'm going to screw up every pronunciation in this.
Fine.
I'm sorry in advance. It's just going to happen. Like his sort of character development really sort of continually surprised me, because at first you strongly dislike him. The way he's introduced, you're like, oh, this guy's going to be sort of a Darth Vader character. Like he's terrible. I didn't see how the movie was going to win me over to him. And I was like, this is interesting, because the movie sure is spending a lot of time focusing on the person who seems to be the antagonist. And the movie really let that gradual sort of redemption for him really let it play slowly in a way that really worked on me. And then by the end, I think by the end I was a bit surprised at the degree to which the movie was a sort of morality play, like a sort of play within a play, morality play also.
Sure.
But yeah, overall very positive reactions. I thought it was extremely well made. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. There's a lot of individual things to like about it that I really want to talk about. I agree with you that the character of Weissler is a really interesting one, and he's kind of the anchor of the movie. But I also love this relationship between this writer and his girlfriend. I don't think it says they're married. Yeah,
his Fraulein.
Yeah, there you go. This movie's doing a lot of things, and it's speaking about a lot of things. And one of the reasons, like, I think that it's really cool that it's this particular movie we get to talk about, as people who said, hey, we don't watch enough cinema from other countries, bring us some stuff. This is a movie that feels very culturally important to Germany, right? This is a movie about a divided Berlin and East Berlin and East Germany's existence as its own separate state for what was it, like 40 years? It was 1949 to 89, I think. So I guess that's 40 years about I don't know. And what kind of country this was, and like how the people of Germany are still, like, the 80s. It doesn't feel like it for the young people out there, but the 80s aren't that long ago. And this is something that I think that these people, like the people in Germany, are still dealing with the repercussions of post-World War II separation of the state. And it really dives into that and explores it in exactly what you said, a morality play. I mean, it is no accident to me that this movie is set in the year 1984. This is very clearly drawing from George Orwell's novel to tell a very similar story, right? I think this is it's been a while since I read 1984. I don't remember it quite as sharply as I probably should, but it is similar in how it is about a person working for the state that is, over time throughout the movie, kind of slowly comes to realize that what's going on here is not good. And I think 1984 ends considerably sadder than this movie does. But I mean, I think that it's making a lot of allusions to just an Orwellian nightmare. But the thing that's fascinating about it is 1984 was a look forward to the future of the worst case of what a completely state-run, state-controlled existence would be, and this is looking back on what was, that this happened. This definitely happened. That moment at the end of this movie where Draymond is getting to look through all the files that were collected on him by the Stasi. I looked this up because I was curious. That is really what happened. As part of unification, they allowed anyone who was spied on full access to the documents that were made about them. So that really happened. They had, all these people could have full access to these things. And it's fascinating. This movie is reckoning with this past and reckoning with all that. And I thought it did it in a beautiful way with these three central characters. Yeah,
it's so fascinating. And where 1984, like you said, is a downer, this is actually a very hopeful humanistic movie. At the core of the movie, you have the Dryman character, who is this unflappable humanist who believes the best in people. He's a real idealist. In fact, the whole movie, I thought I thought we were just going to hammer on this guy until he finally broke and shattered, and he was left broken and ruined. Like I really thought that was the direction the movie was going in, was that this is a story about how the Stasi broke this guy. And in fact, he's never broken at any point. He's perfect, actually. He's an icon. And he sort of, in very interesting ways, he sort of mirrors Weisler, and sort of almost serves as an inspiration to Weisler, who is watching him and sort of realizing, like, hey, this guy is actually the last person in the world who we should be persecuting, and the fact that we're persecuting him, someone this awesome, and this sort of pure, is just proof positive that we're the bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because I think you're right. Like, the fascinating thing about this movie to me is how the Stasi create a problem by their obsession with this person, that Draymond is certainly frustrated with the state, and he's frustrated with the blacklisting of Jerska, his friend and director, but he was not radicalized against the state until things continue to escalate, and they kind of continue to push at him and push at and it's like the state creates its own problems.
Yeah. I mean, I almost got the impression that, like, I don't think that Dreyman ever decides, like, I am not a socialist anymore. I think it's more like, I can't look away from these particular crimes of the state, but I feel like he remains committed to the same ideology that he always was, because he's like a perfect idealist.
I think he does love his country. That's the fascinating thing about it, is, like, he does like his country. I mean, I love what he says to Minister Hempf about Jerska, and about, like, hey, look, this guy stayed here. He could have fled to the West, and he could have, gotten to direct movies, but he stayed here because he likes this place. And I don't know if there's 100% truth to that, but that to me shows Dreyman as an idealist that does, like, part of him likes East Germany, and he wants to make this country as best as it could possibly be. And the problem is there's just horrible corruption in it everywhere, and it's not possible to do that. I mean, I think, like, we see that. I think it was 2 years later, after the wall had fallen, he's still living in the same apartment. So it's not like the wall fell and he rushed to West Germany. He rushed to the West. Yeah. He stayed where he was. He's still living there.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, he's a fascinating character. You're right. I mean, he's built up as this ideologically pure character for a reason, so we can really explore the changing in Weisler.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the last scene with, well, not the last scene, but one of the last scenes with him, where Hempf, the evil, just absolutely odious minister, confronts him at the play. You're like, okay, now Dreyman's going to just deck him, because there's nothing holding him back. This guy basically is responsible for the death of the woman he loved. This guy is a monster. He should hate him. He should, like he'd be fully justified in just lashing out at him. And he says is, like, he gets, like, one put down in, and then he just walks away. And it to me, that just showed, like, oh, okay, this guy is just always going to take the high ground, and that's what's meant to be admirable about him.
And that's what makes Weisler this stickler, like, hardcore dude that we meet at the very beginning of this movie soften a little bit. And that's actually something I wanted to talk to you about. That's something I've been thinking about a lot, actually, as I've been watching movies over the past few weeks, is the ways in which movies introduce characters to us, and the ways in which they characterize those characters. And I was thinking of his introduction here a lot, because we are introduced, as you said, in a Darth Vader-y kind of way, but the introduction to this character is he's teaching a class on how to properly interrogate someone. And it is this monstrously cruel moment where they just torture this guy for hours until he finally breaks. And he is utterly convinced of his correctness, right? Like, here's how you know they're lying. Here's what, like, This is cut and dry. It's black and white. There's nothing to think about here. It's clearly lying. This works. And then this moment at the end, I think my favorite part of this introductory scene is when he tells them, "Do you hear this? What am I doing now?" And he's unscrewing the cover on the seat to save for the dogs, to collect the scent for the dogs. And it's just this moment, like, why did you need to tell that to these students? Why did that part matter in your interrogation technique course? And it's because he's this like extremely straight-laced, by the book, follow everything proper type of guy, and that is one more part of it. I found it a fascinating introduction, and you're right that you're just like, oh my god, this guy is terrible.
Yeah, well, he is terrible. What gradually becomes clear, though, is through contrast between him and his sort of superior / former classmate Grubitz. He's terrible, but he's not corrupt.
No,
he's terrible in the way that only someone who thinks they're right can be terrible.
Yeah.
Like he absolutely thinks that his cause is so just and so necessary that it's justified that he behaved this way.
Yeah, both Grubitz and Hempf are fully aware that this whole thing is bullshit. That the reason for spying on Draymond is for personal reasons. It's because Hempf likes his girlfriend and wants her.
Wants to ruin him.
Yeah, he wants to ruin him so he can get the girl. And Grubitz knows about that. And that is not why Weisler originally gets on to this case. Like, it's originally because of his instincts. But I mean, like, yeah, every moment he's like, it's amazing to me how they took this character, and I think it's such a great performance by the actor. He can be both menacing at times and then just like this kind of wide-eyed innocent, where like you just feel bad for him in some ways, because like you're the only non-corrupt member of this government left. And that doesn't excuse any of the actions you're doing, of course, but like he does have this naivety about, it's the wrong way to say that word, but about his government. And you're right, and it's sad and it's tragic. And I think one of the things that his experience watching these people, these lives of others, is coming to realize that, coming to realize how corrupt it is, and what they're doing and what they're destroying in destroying these artists. Yeah,
I mean, it really took a turn that I didn't think it would. Like the plot. I should say right out, like, if you haven't seen this movie, I don't think we've necessarily fully spoiled it yet. Maybe do yourself a favor and watch it, because I was very pleasantly surprised by the turn that the plot takes. Because, like, again, I was just like, this is going to be the story of this loner weirdo Weisler ruining the life of this poor writer guy and driving him to suicide or something. And I really felt like that's what things were going to be for a big chunk of the movie. I think the first moment, because the movie kind of keeps giving him opportunities to do otherwise. And I think the first moment where anything other than that happens is when he's in the elevator with the little boy. And the little boy says, "My daddy says that the Stasi are bad men who arrest innocent people." And then he starts to say, "What's your daddy's name?" And then he stops himself and he doesn't. And then you're like, oh shit. It's getting to him. It's too much for him. And then like that to me is such a great moment where you kind of, you realize, like, oh, it's not, at least for me, I don't know why I walked into the movie with the impression that I had. I just figured it was going to be a tragedy. I mean, it is a tragedy, but I figured it was going to be just like a full-on 1984 style, we're just going to watch these people get destroyed tragedy. And it was only sort of that.
Yeah, I mean, God, he's such a wonderful character, and I love the movie, like, this is a very kind of slow burn movie, right? It's 2 hours and 17 minutes long. It takes its time, and so we kind of very, very slowly watch as he is continually affected by these people. And it's not like, and I love that, because it's not like it happens all at once. It's not like a switch flips and suddenly he's like, oh, these people have convinced me. It's this slow burn, he kind of slowly interacts more with them. Well, like, one of the big things he does, one of the big first things he does is make the doorbell ring so that Draymond finds out what his wife has been doing. And like, then he goes into the house at one point, and then he happens to go to the same bar that she's in. And I love that realization that he like gets off of his shift, hands it off to the other person, and then goes and sits at a bar. And then it's not till later that you realize he's gone to the same bar that he knew she was going to be at. And then he walks up to her, and you're just like, oh my God, dude, what are you doing? It's just this slow, kind of deliberate change of him over the course of the middle of the film. And I think that makes that allows the change to be earned there. Like, I think a lesser film would kind of rush this and want to get to the point where he's actively helping them and lying, and because there's a lot of tension to be mined from those scenes. Like, I think some of the best scenes in the movie are when he's interrogating her and she recognizes him from the bar, and he's forced to interrogate her in this moment. And you're like, what is he going to do? I don't know what he's going to do. What the hell is this guy going to do here? There's great tension to be mined from those scenes. But I think the movie correctly anticipates that tension wouldn't work as well if we didn't take the time to show how he went from this straight-laced guy who lives this extremely Spartan lifestyle. Like, did you see the thing he ate in...
It's like rice with like either ketchup or hot sauce.
Yeah.
That was his dinner.
Yes, it's like the most plain, like, uninspiring thing. He turns on the TV, but he is watching the news. I don't think we see any books in his house, and that is contrast with Draymond, whose house is like filled with books. There are books fucking everywhere, piles of them.
So many that he's like, no more books, please, no more books.
Yeah. And I think that is some great set design there to really contrast these two characters, because I think, you know, it is not an accident that this movie made Draymond a writer and an artist. And I think that it is the power of art that is part of what changes Weisler, that he can see the importance and the power of art, and that what the Stasi is doing is stifling that creative impulse that is destroying people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the movie talks a lot about art too. Like, I love the bit where he goes into Grubitz's office, and Grubitz like is just goes on like a 4-minute little summary of this like PhD dissertation that he's reading about the best way to like categorize and subsequently break artists. And he specifically talks about the hysterical anthropocentric, who I think we're meant to understand is Dryman. And like just like the movie wants us to think about that. The movie wants us to think about the connection between being an artist and the human soul, and how if you break, you know, if you don't let an artist be an artist, you break their spirit. And then the movie very deliberately links that to suicide. And it's like you're literally killing people by stifling their ability to speak their, you know, their art, their own truths. And you know, I thought that was very well conveyed emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, especially since Weisler is there to turn in Draymond. He's finally gotten to the point where he's like, oh my God, this has gone too far. Like, I am actively being a subversive to my country. I need to do my job and turn him in. And it is Grubitz's speech there that makes him change his mind. And it's the end of that speech, right, where he ends the speech on, and you know the best thing about this? After we release those people from that torture, they never write again. They never create again. Whatever it is, you know, story, painting, they never do it again. And that is the moment where the camera so expertly cuts to the piece of paper with his report in his hand and him crumpling it up, because that is the moment where he finally makes a decision that, no, I am not going to turn this person in, because that is what they will do to him. They will kill him. And it's God, Grubitz is such a disgusting character. I love
Yeah.
it so much because he's like, and we don't even have to hurt him. That's what he's like. Like, we're not even hurting him. There's no physical violence. We don't touch him. We just toss him away. But you are killing him. You are killing these people. You may not be pulling the trigger or tying the noose, but you are killing these people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I'm just kind of stunned at how great it is, honestly, because the character of Weissler, I think, just is so endlessly fascinating to think about. I've been kind of thinking about it off and on since the movie ended, because like in a certain sense, it's like unbelievably naive of him to be in the position that he's in and not realize that this is what his job is, you know.
Yeah.
But also then you continue to think about it and you're like, man, I really think that every person or not every person, but a lot of people whose job it is to do this sort of thing, they think they're doing the right thing, and they just never, like, it takes some particular instance where they realize, like, oh, the system that I am a part of, it doesn't really care. It doesn't really care whether it's just. It just cares that it remains in power.
Yeah. Well, I think the fascinating thing about the teaching moment at the beginning of the movie where he is teaching these kids about interrogation techniques, he is right there, right? Like the person that he interrogated did do the thing that he's trying to get the information out of him for. Like, he is a subversive to the state. He is plotting against the state. Like, by the end of the interrogation, the movie has concluded that. And so, yeah, I think you can very easily see why this guy has utterly convinced himself that this is all for the good. This is all for the benefit of the country, of the people, that I'm doing this, because these people are trying to destroy our beautiful little country. And yeah, it takes art, and it takes these people and the lives of others to shock him out of that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I like that it's like 1984 certainly is effective, and its ending is certainly effective, that it leaves you in this case of like, well, fuck. But this movie, it does end hopefully. And I love like Weissler does what he does. He takes the typewriter out from under the spot. So Drayman does not get caught, and Grubitz knows about it, and so he basically tells him, your life is over now. For the next 20 years, you're going to be opening envelopes, steaming envelopes. And I love that the movie then cuts to, like, when I see like people give threats like that in movies, like, I always kind of assume that they're being like, for example, this is going to be an example of what your life is going to be like, but literally it cuts to him just literally opening envelopes. That is what his job is. But 4 and whatever years later, the wall fell. Reunification happened. This wasn't forever.
Right.
Art, the soul, the human spirit triumphed in this case, and these things were defeated. And I think that, and it is. I mean, the movie doesn't come right out and directly say this, but it is because of people like Drayman. It is because of people that spoke out and were allowed to speak out. And I think Drayman's, dedication of his novel at the end of the story to Weissler is an example of that. Like, you facilitated the fall of the Berlin Wall by saving this person. Yeah,
that's why it's such an optimistic story ultimately, because it's saying, even in all of this darkness, these few good men, that the name of the book, the good man, right? That's the name of it. These good individuals who were strong and steadfast, they steered us through this. Another thing about that scene you were just talking about, where he says, your career is over. There's like a blink and you'll miss it. Like, I literally had to rewind the movie to make sure that I'd seen what I thought I saw, where it shows the newspaper sitting on like the passenger seat beside him, and it says like Gorbachev elected to whatever, and you're like, okay, so no, it's not going to be the rest of his life.
Yeah, that I saw that too. That was a really nice touch of the movie. I think the movie does that a lot. There's a lot of really clever directorial decisions here, where it will cut to insert shots that indicate important things. I mean, there's also a really great moment. I think the moment where they're searching for the typewriter and they're removing the floorboard, and you just see Draymond and Krista like look at each other, and there's no dialogue in that scene, and just through the way they look at each other and the way the camera cuts like really quickly back and forth between the two of them, everything is communicated there, where he's like, it was you did this, and then she but like breaks eye contact, which is like, yes, this was me, and I am ashamed, and like it's so well communicated without any dialogue there. I really loved it.
Yeah, there was a lot like that. The acting was superb. The little details, like you said, like I love when he's reading through the reports at the end and he just sees the smudge of red ink and then he reacts to it, and you're like, yeah, that's all you needed to do, movie. I get it.
Yep. Really wonderful. Another small detail that like I don't want to body shame people, but I noticed that all of the officials in the government were overweight people.
Yeah.
And I think the film really accentuated the unhealthiness of their obesity a little bit, except for Weissler was like the only like skinny one. Like Hempf in particular. And again, I no shade to the actor. I do think this was an intentional directorial decision here. Like he is a very like heavy breather. He's overweight, and I think they put him in a little bit tighter clothing possibly. Yeah. And he just has a like, he's always like breathing, and like it's very labored breathing through all of his talking.
Yeah. Well, he's just playing a total creep. I mean, just in terms of making him gross, like the scene where he is, I think the correct word to use, raping Krista. He just like turns his butt toward the camera and shoves his tighty whitey underwear ass into the camera and then pulls down his pants. And it's like, we're just meant to find him completely revolting.
Yeah. I do think there's some clever imagery there, though, to like all the subversive people are skinny. And you could argue that this is because of the officials are eating the excess, right? They're overindulging on the power they have, and everyone else is suffering.
Yeah, sure. I like that. Yeah.
Don't know if that was deliberate or not, but it's certainly something I noticed.
Yeah. One thing I thought, I don't know, this is not related to that, but just like I thought I was pretty ambivalent toward Dryman for the first chunk of the movie. Like I wasn't sure, like, because the movie doesn't start on him. It kind of comes to him a bit late. Yeah. And then you're sort of like, the impression you get of him is sort of like from a far distance, we're watching him. We don't really know what to think of him. Maybe he is, just sort of this dissipated artiste who is, not lacks integrity.
Yeah, he's playing the game. Yeah,
you think maybe he's playing the game. I think a lot of this is because we're seeing him through Weissler's eyes, but eventually you come around on him. And I don't even remember the moment when I kind of felt like I came around. I think it was probably somewhere in the vicinity of him trying to help his director friend Yerska, and it just showing that he was really being genuine. And well, being genuine, but actually still lying to him, because he told him there was hope, and there was definitely no hope.
Definitely not. Yeah, that's a very difficult scene. I want to kind of circle back to something you talked about at the beginning, though, where it's clear that Weissler is kind of in love with Krista Marie, and I think you're absolutely true, and I correct in that, because I think like the power of the opening where Weissler has gone to a play, and this is a character who is utterly uninterested in art at this point in the movie, but he is enraptured by her. She walks out on the stage, and like he can't stop looking at her. But I think it's really interesting, though, because it's two things, right? Like he is kind of torn between his obsession with her beauty and his unending need to study Draymond. And so I do think, I do think he is in love with Krista, but where I thought this movie was going to go was that he's in love with her specifically and is going to help her. But I do think he is enraptured by Draymond as well, and it is both their relationship and them as people that is just, he can't look away from either of them. And when he first sees Draymond, I think he interprets that as like his instinct telling him there's something to suspect about this person. But I think he finds him just fascinating as a human being in a way that he's never really considered before. And he doesn't know what to do with that. He doesn't know where to file that. So he files it under suspicion at first.
Yeah. I need to study these people to understand what's going on here. I don't understand it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's Dryman's piano playing that brings him to tears in one of the moments that really makes you feel like it's really, there's no going back for him. So, I mean, in a sense, he falls in love with both of them. I don't think that's incorrect to say.
And I mean, the piano playing, you're right, is such a beautiful moment because once again, we go back to this image of art and the power of art, right? And that I think is the movie kind of speaking metatextually a little bit here. It's like, this is what stories can do. This is what this story can do for people. If we can show you, if we can teach you, if we can impact you on an emotional level, if we can get to the emotional core at the bottom of you, we can even transform rice ketchup man into someone who cares passionately and deeply and is willing to stick his own neck out for what is right. That is what art can do. And I think this movie recognizes the importance of that. And I think the movie does that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. Really, really beautiful movie. When in different, it surprised me. I think anytime something surprises me, like it makes me think, like, oh, okay, I know what box to put this in, and then it takes a different direction. I give it a bunch more extra points. One thing that surprised me to learn was that it only cost $2 million to make this movie, and it made way more than that, which it deserved to. But I was just, it just looks great. It looks fantastic. I almost have a hard time believing that it only cost $2 million.
See, the thing about countries other than America is that they make movies that don't need to be $100 million blockbusters. I think this, like, other countries also have a lot more state-sponsored productions, right? That I don't know if that budget included what money they got from the state or credits they got from the state. I have no idea, but especially in Europe, these movies will like be kind of facilitated by the country itself, especially when they think it's a really good film that will bring a lot of attention to the country, which this of course did, because this movie did win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film in 2007, I believe. So it definitely brought a lot of attention to Germany and German film for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, what's funny is I misrecognized the actor who plays Weissler for like the first half of the movie. I was like, oh, that's the guy from, and then I was like, no. Well, first of all, I thought I recognized him, and then I realized I don't actually recognize him. But anyway, it does seem like some of these actors may have gotten recognition from being in this movie.
Yeah, the actor who played Weissler is a man named Ulrich, and I can't pronounce his last name because there's like a thingy above the U, and I just don't know how that's pronounced at all. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He actually died like the year after this movie came out.
Sucks.
And he was born in East Germany in the 50s. So I think he has such expressive eyes, Like I think his eyes are so expressive and powerful, and I think he totally milks that to great effect in this movie.
Yeah, it's fascinating because in the first part of the movie, I thought maybe one of my criticisms that I was going to bring to this discussion was like, I think that the actor who plays Weissler is just being a little bit too wooden, and it's not really cueing us into any of the pathos that might or might not be happening with this character.
See, I totally disagree. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I stopped feeling that way at a certain point. And I think it was just that I was kind of taking, I mean, for the first bit of the movie, he is just as cold as you think he is. Like, he's just like, I'm definitely right. Maybe you sense a bit of the disgust he feels toward his corrupt coworkers and the disdain he feels toward them. But fundamentally, you don't sense a crack in the facade. And then when he starts having that crack in the facade, he only expresses it in the most subtle of ways, but you still get the message, and that's what's so good about it.
Yeah, totally agree. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the sound design of this movie. This could be just a product of its very, very small budget, but I've noticed, and this is not the only movie that, like, I've seen a lot of European films, especially at the film festivals I go to. I feel like 90% of the movies I watch are foreign films, and most of those come from Europe. And there's a specific kind of look to European cinema that I find really interesting. The lighting is always very, very natural. They don't kind of get crazy with coloring. It's like just like the buildings. And I think this was by design in this movie. The buildings are always very sparse and very kind of naturally cold. And the sound mix is always mixed up a little higher on background effects. The thing I really, really noticed in this movie was the mix of walking on wood. There's a lot of creaking and groaning on wood, and I think the movie uses it to great effect when the typewriter is hidden under that floorboard and people are walking across it. The Stasi is walking across it as they're searching desperately for the typewriter, and they can't find it. And it's a very tense scene because we know where it is, and they keep walking on it, and you just hear that delicious creak. But that is something that they didn't just like turn up the mix in that moment. That just the way the movie is mixed generally. That footsteps and creaking of wood and the groaning and the places that they're in making noise and having sound is something that I felt was very, very visceral in this movie and made it like sound is important in this movie, right? Because this is the majority of the movie is a guy sitting there listening to people's lives. Like he can't see them, he can only hear them. And so I think the movie, used an aesthetic that I'm used to seeing in other films to great effect to really drive that point home. That just mixing. I don't know. I don't know if this was a deliberate choice or not, but it does feel like the footsteps, the creaking, the groaning, the opening and closing of books, the slamming of doors, the slamming of like the piano and stuff like that is just a little louder than it would be if this movie was made in the United States.
Sure, the clacking of typewriter keys.
Yeah.
The sounds of, I think even like if they're driving in a vehicle, you can usually hear the sounds of the vehicle, in the background of the conversation.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right about all of that. And I mean, other than being a stylistic choice, like I'm not sure like what the perception is because there's always, part of the whole East-West German sort of battle or whatever. My understanding is that it was like West Germany rapidly became, much more economically powerful, just very, very rapidly. Mm-hmm. And East Germany lagged behind. And that was sort of the main driving force. I mean, obviously there was terrible oppression, but I think like the really incredibly obvious economic disparity was probably a prime mover in breaking down the wall. I invite people to correct me if I'm wrong about that, by the way, because I'm not exactly a scholar of all this, but I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like the opportunity to watch these movies is because it's like, it challenges what may have been your preconceived notions that you absorbed in like high school and then never thought about again.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, the reason I bring that up is to say like, if they live in kind of a little bit older buildings, their cars are a little bit crappier, they make a little bit more noise, everything is a little bit shaky. Like maybe that was a thing they were trying to express with this sound design, which is like everything's a little bit janky.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the case. I'm just, if there was a reason behind it, I wonder if that was the reason.
I think possibly. I mean, one of the things that I did notice is after the fall of the wall and reunification, when Draymond goes back to the Stasi headquarters to, look through the files, there is this cut where the camera like shifts to the parking lot. And in the parking lot are these like brand new shiny looking cars, some of which I believe were Mercedes, just nice looking new cars. Right. And I think that is meant to kind of represent this, that reunification has brought prosperity to East Germany.
Yeah.
And of course, not to say that economic woes in this country just ceased to exist after the wall fell. That is not true. That's not the way things work anywhere. But that it brought new life to this country that didn't have it before. I mean, I do like that. Like, we see there's this moment where he's talking with I blanked on his name, with Hemph. And Hemph is talking about how, that there's people out there that miss our old little country, that want to go back to the way it was before we had our little tiny country. Like, and I was surprised at that, because I was like, really? Are there really? I mean, maybe it's just the people like Hemph who had all the power in that country.
Probably. I mean, also, there was a scene, it's pretty quick really, where, Weisler is walking somewhere, I think it might be like right after we see that he's now a mailman, and he walks across the front of a building, and the front of the building is just completely graffitied up.
Yeah.
Which I think is meant to be like, yeah, I mean, look, the wall is down and we're now in a free society. In the old society, people would have had their thumbs broken for spray painting a building, and their families jailed and so forth. But now it's a free society that comes with all the benefits, and you could argue the drawbacks of a free society where
sure.
There's not this like social cohesion in this sense that we're all pulling in the same direction, and the sense of unity and belonging with the the country, patriotism and so forth. But I mean, as an American, for sure, as an American. we're just constitutionally programmed through hundreds of years of of training to think I don't want to join a team.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting not to get too political, but I don't think this movie is specifically anti-socialism, right? I mean, it is not speaking broadly about the tenets of that system. It is just speaking specifically about the rampant corruption that spread through this particular system. And you could maybe, if you wanted to, you could argue that is demonstrative of a larger systemic flaw. But I don't think the movie is like necessarily wanting you to be like, look, this is what happens when you do the evil socialism. I don't think it wants to be that broad.
Yeah, I mean, especially in 2020, I think the word socialism has lost all meaning. So,
Fair.
I think, but I agree with you though that the movie seems agnostic about socialism qua socialism. It's
Sure.
more just saying, Weisler saw something valuable about this ideology. I think what appealed, I think what appealed to him about it was like the sense of belonging and the sense that he was working for something greater than himself, and that his work in, keeping the society in order was allowing everyone's life to be better than it otherwise would have been.
Yeah. I mean, there is something, we haven't talked about this, but the wall falls, and he goes from being a person who's opening mail to being a person who's delivering mail. And his life, like, still seems a bit lonely. Like, he's by himself. He lives still kind of a very Spartan existence. We don't really see him. Like, it's not like he's living it up in the West. He's still kind of carrying on being the type of person that he always was. I mean, there is a hope. Like, I love, like, the movie ends with him buying the book that is dedicated to himself, and I think that is once again spreading this message of the power of art. That you have this guy who, I don't think we see him reading a book the entire movie, and he's buying this novel by this person he deeply loves. But yeah, I mean, it's not like the fall of the wall like made Weisler's life like perfect, right? That and you could argue that in the system he was under, as part of the Stasi, as part of the secret police, he was in a position of power, just like Hemph and just like everyone else that was benefiting from the system that is now saying, oh, I'm so nostalgic for the days of our small, tiny country. And he specifically chose to break free from that system or to damage his role in that system so much that he no longer had any benefit from it. So it is interesting that, like, like I feel like choosing to make him a mailman was a very deliberate choice in the echo of the envelopes, opening versus delivering, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I mean, it basically, I think that the movie was saying his life basically stayed the same. Mm-hmm. The world changed around him, but he was almost completely unchanged by it. Mm-hmm. I think you're right about that. The more this is not important, but it's interesting because, like, as I reflect on what I said a second ago, I'm like, like East Germany was full on communist. the fact that you use the word socialism in this movie is I think mostly just like a translation thing.
I mean, I do think they called themselves socialist. I don't think they were coming right out and saying they were communist. But again, I'm not an expert at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't feel the need to get bogged down in it, but but like the degree. I mean, obviously, the degree to which they took things was in about as far in the pathological direction as you possibly can. Where really the totalitarian nature of the state is what the problem is, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care what economic policy the country has. What's really relevant in this case is the totalitarianism. The everything has to be this way, or we put you under the jail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, I think modern Germany is a more socialist state than certainly the United States is, right? So, like, it's not boo socialism, but yes, it is boo totalitarianism for sure.
Sure. Which I think is the same thing. I think that's the point of 1984. Incidentally, I don't even know if I could describe like what is the economical system of 1984. It's like that's not really the right question. The fact is that the state decides everything. It's just state run. It's state dictated. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about this movie?
Probably, but I can't think of it right now. Really, really thought-provoking movie, really entertaining movie.
Absolutely.
I watched it with subtitles. There's something about subtitles that forces you to pay really close attention. I mean, obviously, it's the fact that you can't ever look away from the screen even for a second. But I love this. I'm really glad that we got to watch it.
Me too. Thank you, Reatter, so much. That was a real pleasure. I hope to see some more movies from some more countries or some more German movies. I like German film. I have seen, I can't remember what they were at the top of my head, but I see a lot of random genre stuff from just random European countries, and I tend to really like it. So this was great. This was great.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, I want to talk to you about Lovecraft Country. So, do you know anything about this at all?
I think I should just say no because all I really know is that it's not what you think it is.
Sure, yeah. It is a TV series on HBO. It is created by a showrunner named Misha Green. She adapted it from a novel called Lovecraft Country by an author named Matt Ruff. And it is basically, I mean, like, to quickly describe the series, I think what this is specifically trying to do, and what Misha Green is specifically trying to do, is taking horror and genre and picking H.P. Lovecraft specifically as a person who, even for his day, was pretty racist, and recapturing this stuff for a black person of color audience, right? This is a television show about several black characters living in the 1950s under Jim Crow America, and also about monsters. And it is this really fascinating combination of these two things. And without getting too much into spoilers, this first episode is really, really interesting because for the first half of it, you are following three black characters as they make their way through the United States in the 50s. These are people that, I don't know if you know about the Green Book. Like, there was a movie about it that came out a couple years ago. How long ago was it? I don't even know.
I mean, I know about the movie. I don't know what the Green Book is, though.
So basically, it is a travel guide for black people in Jim Crow America. Like, here's the safe places to go. Here's the not safe places to go. Like, here's places where they will literally kill you. Like, there were all these sundown cities and sundown counties across the United States that basically had laws on the books that said black people are not allowed here after the sun goes down. And if we find you here, you are breaking the law and we will kill you. That happened. Like 70 years ago, not even that long ago. So these people are on the one, like, exploring or trying to help develop this travel guide by seeking out these areas and find these places. And also one of them is like has a weird connection to his father, his mother, that go back to to Lovecraft Country. And so basically the TV show, this first episode at least, is this kind of exploration of horror in that way, where for the first half is the horror of evil, monstrous police officers in Jim Crow era United States that are just going to kill you if they see you after the sun sets. And it transitions very wonderfully into, oh yeah, and now here are some Lovecraft monsters. And I'm really, really into how the show is kind of handling that and exploring this transition. Because to get a little bit specific, there is a scene in this movie where these three characters are stopped by a police officer, and he is told that this is a sundown county and the sun sets in 7 minutes and you have to be out of my county in 7 minutes or I'm gonna hang you. And so there is a slow speed chase as these people need to get out of the county as fast as possible, but also if they go a mile above the speed limit, they will immediately be pulled over. So they need to drive 25 miles an hour as the sun is slowly setting. And it's this incredibly intense, incredibly like slow chase in this show. And by the time it gets to a point where the monsters come out, you're honestly almost a little relieved because like the most interesting thing this episode is saying, I think, is that when it comes to the system, when it comes to the cops, these people, our characters are completely powerless. There's nothing they can do. They're completely powerless in their ability to strike back against the system. But when the monsters come out, they can like do some cool shit, and they can like plan and find the monster's weaknesses and exploit those weaknesses to get out of the situation. And I think it's going to, I'm very excited about all the episodes coming because I think it's going to continue to bounce back and forth between these two things, between the monstrousness of people and the monstrousness of literal monsters, and how these two things interact and how the story changes based on, going from one to the other. Like there's this beautiful scene where the cops are standing above our three characters with guns to their head about to kill them, and then monsters come, and all these characters go from being like monster and person I'm about to kill to huddled together in a room fighting against a literal like Lovecraft monster. And so like it's doing a lot of really interesting things, and I'm just really on board so far. I'm just really, really on board.
It's fascinating. I was just thinking about John Dies at the End, the book / web serial that we covered on Book Club several months ago, and I was thinking about our conclusion on that story, which was that I thought it had this really delightfully fresh sort of take on the idea of like cosmic horror, where in that story, cosmic horror was actually just the banality of evil, and I thought it was very well done in that story. And this sounds like it's sort of taking cosmic horror and doing something very interesting with not the banality of evil, maybe the systemic nature of evil.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but I'm just going on what you said. But that sounds, I'm automatically down for cosmic horror / fill in the blank. So yeah. I really want to check this out.
I'm really interested in seeing exactly the ways it can, because it is almost by design confronting the racism of H.P. Lovecraft, right? Like that is almost the mission statement of the story, because it is taking this notoriously racist guy who defined a genre and then saying, okay, but like, I want to take that back. Just because you created this doesn't mean that and I'm saying I as in the characters, a black person can't take this. Like one of the characters loves Lovecraft stories. Like the show opens up on this 5-minute sequence where it turns out he's dreaming, but like he's dreaming about this battle against these big Cthulhu monsters. Like it's just it's fascinating, and I think the show is going to just go wild, and like there's monsters in this first episode, so like I feel like there's going to be crazy Lovecraft shit everywhere, but it's using that it's using genre to really explore systemic monstrosity, and I can't wait to see where it goes with that and how it concludes on that. And it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
This is awesome. I'm so excited. Yeah. I as soon as I can figure out what HBO Max versus HBO Go is, I'll be watching it.
Good luck. Yeah, HBO Go doesn't exist anymore, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure. But yeah, that it is on any of the various HBO platforms. It is available. I really, really strongly recommend it. Again, only seen the first episode. I have no idea where it's going to go from here. But I also kind of want to read the book now. I'd love to cover the book on book club. I think that'd be really fun.
I didn't even know there was a book.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I was giving credit for this to Misha Green, the showrunner. Again, I have not read the book, so I do not know how much of what she's doing is coming out of the book itself. So I don't want to say like she came up with this whole idea. There is a book, and I just have no experience with the book, so I don't know. It's exciting stuff, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it, right? That's it for the episode. Yeah,
I think so.
That's all we had for you guys this week. So let us know if you have seen The Lives of Others, or if you go out to watch it after listening to us talk about it. Please let us know what you think. I really do think it's worth your time. It is available to rent on just about any of the streaming platforms that exist out there. So check it out if you're interested. And let me know what you think about Lovecraft Country. Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. I should give you contact places to do that. Right? That's how websites work. You can reach us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia with your thoughts on either of those things.
Yeah. If you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, then we encourage you to do that and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can support all of our shows over at our website, www.doofmedia.com. The website right now is actually where you're also going to see my continuing coverage of the Fantasia Film Festival. It is the 20th of August right now, so today is the first day of the festival. I have already watched 3 movies, and I have 3 more coming very soon, and then more after that. So I'm going to be watching. I'm so busy. I'm going to try to get some reviews out over the weekend on some of these movies. So if you're at all interested in what's going on at the Fantasia Film Festival, you can head on over to doofmedia.com. And we actually have something on the top of the homepage that is going to take you right to all of our Fantasia coverage. So see some reviews of some cool genre films from around the world. I watched a great film from the Netherlands. I watched a zombie movie from, I can't remember where it was from. It was a combination of English and another language I did not recognize.
Well, I want to read all about all of this, so.
Cool. Well, Matt, just go to doofmedia.com and click on Fantasia 2020.
I'm going to visit doofmedia.com and click on Fantasia 2020.
Wow, you're so good at this. And if you like what we do here and want to support us financially, you can always become a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and you can pledge $1 a month, or you can be like our patron Reatter, who made this episode happen by pledging $20 and picking a movie from any country around the world that you want us to do a show on. Any of them. All, how many countries are there? 106. Any of the countries around the world.
Any country.
Any of the countries.
Except Antarctica.
That's not a country, Matt.
Exactly. Anyway.
How many times do I have to tell you that Antarctica is not a country? How many times? I just want one episode where I don't have to remind you that Antarctica is not a country.
I know. It's a problem. I assume you'll cut that out just like you have with all the other episodes.
Not this time. Not this time.
Not this time. Okay.
Not this time.
Anyway, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, that is it for us this week. We will see you all back here next week. It's going to be a very special episode, Matt, because we will be joined once again by Elliot and Ruben to discuss Season 2 of The Legend of Korra.
name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.